to another video on the channel. Today we finally are going to finish up part 4 of our series on the Sorare scoring system. So first off, I do have to apologize. This video has been much delayed. I've had a ton of projects come up at both work and school that have required immediate attention, so I have not been able to put out any videos when I have wanted to. So I'm actually going to be recording this on my lunch break, and hopefully I can get this out to you guys a little bit later on today. But we're going to hop straight into the video. We're going to talk about forwards here, what we're looking for, what we're not looking for as far as the scoring for forwards. So first of all, if you guys aren't following the channel, please make sure that you subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. Like the videos as well. That way when I do drop new videos, you guys are notified of it. But we're going to get straight into the video here. So I'm going to pull this up. So again, we're looking at the forwards, how they score, and then maybe what types of forwards we should be looking for. So if you don't know what page we're on, it's under community and then under help. And then we're on the how is the player score calculated tab. So we're looking at forwards. It is almost exclusively, their scoring value is almost exclusively going to come from this area. So we're looking at goals, we're looking at assists, we're looking at penalties won. That's almost exclusively where our forward scores come from. And then obviously if they're starting or if they're subbing in. So 35 points for starting, 25 points for subbing. With a forward, that makes it makes a pretty big difference. Because a lot of times when you do have subs, they tend to be the forwards or the midfields. You don't see as many subs with the defenders, so they more start every single game, whereas the forwards, you can see some more rotation as you go throughout the season. So you may get a few games where they're coming off the bench and only getting 25 points. Don't see typically too many red cards or own goals or conceded penalties or errors leading to a goal. So we don't generally have to worry about our score going down. But going up is very difficult to do. And as I said, it's almost all coming from goals and assists. The thing that I want to point out from here on the all-around score, so you can see for forwards, so a lot of these, won tackles, blocked crosses, goals conceded, clean sheets, a lot of these things that we were looking for in our defenders and our midfielders don't have any value for forwards. Possession won doesn't have any value. Possession loss has such a small value that it really doesn't even matter if we're losing possession as a forward. Duels are the same either way. You're not typically going to get many forwards that get into a lot of duels, but they're also very small in value. Interceptions are nothing. Accurate long balls are nothing. Long passes are nothing. Missed passes are nothing. So there's not a whole lot of ways to go up, but there's also not a whole lot of ways to go down. So that can kind of be a good thing and a bad thing. Generally, you're going to see your forwards have very consistent scores at two sort of levels, and it really just depends if they score or if they don't score, or if they assist or they don't assist. And that's really, so we'll get into the graphs here in a minute, but that's really what we're looking for, is scoring and assisting. And then also these chance created, attempted assists can be helpful, and shots on target is the other thing that's a little bit under the radar. You don't generally have a ton of shots on target without scoring, but there are some guys who shoot on target more often and some guys who don't shoot on target very often. So maybe a slight thing to keep an eye on, but realistically it doesn't make that big of a difference, as you can kind of see when we go into our graphs here in a second. The other thing, if they miss a big chance, that's a 5-point deduction. So you will see sometimes that people have, a bad game as a forward. Generally, that's going to be from this. Either they missed 1 or 2 chances. Realistically, it's very difficult to make up 10 points as a forward. So if you miss 2 big chances, then you're going to be going down from your starting score. Now, we're going to get into the graphs here. So I'm going to bring up a few players so that you can just see kind of what I'm talking about when I say they have like very consistent, 2 levels. So what you're looking at here, you can see all of these green dots up here, right? That's all the times where he scored or assisted. So realistically, 60 is a score or assist. That's a score or assist, score assist, score assist. And then these 80s are probably games where he had 2 goals or a goal and an assist or something like that, and he got bumped up to 70 or even higher potentially. So we can scroll down here to the actual columns, and you can see this column is generally with the forwards going to stay pretty consistent. It's normally going to be between 5 and 10. Maybe occasionally it jumps up to like 15. But generally, it's not going to be negative. It's not really going to be above 10 unless they're in a really, really good run of form and taking a ton of shots on target. You're generally going to see, 5 to 10. So how that translates here, 5 to 10 points. So you're going to see that score between 40 and 45 generally. So you can see 40, 36, 35, 40, 42, 44. So all these scores are pretty much between 40 and 45. That's kind of one of your base ranges. And then the other one is your 60, so 5 to 10 would be like 65 to 70 range generally. If they score twice, then it would be like 75 to 80 range. So that's realistically what you're seeing. You're seeing a very consistent platform here, a very consistent platform here. What you're looking for, what differentiates some forwards from other forwards, is how many of these green dots they have and how many of these dots they have. Right? It doesn't really matter if our forward is scoring 45 instead of 40, because they're much, much better in all around. That's not a huge difference. The big deal is, are they scoring goals? Or are they assisting goals? So that's realistically what we're looking for. And you can kind of see, I pulled up a bunch of pretty good players, pretty good forwards. So, like, Diego Rossi was the Golden Boot winner last year in MLS. So if you look at his scores, and I'll even just pull up all of his scores. If you look at his scores, he has a bunch of green dots up here. So that's what's going to realistically bring his score higher, because he scores and assists a lot. Next one we'll look at is Robert Baric, who was one of my picks for breakout striker of the year. And he really hasn't been very good so far. He scored and assisted, I believe, on game 1, and then since then has not scored or assisted. But you can see he definitely has potential. He definitely gets on runs of form where he is insane, and he goes 6-7 games in a row with scoring or assisting. So that's kind of the thing that you're looking for. And again, moving down here, you can see most of these scores are fairly similar. They're fairly much in that range, that 5 to 10 range. But realistically, the difference is coming on this side. So on forwards, you want to pay much more attention to this column right here. We'll go through a couple more. So Rubi Diaz is one of the better MLS forwards, and you can see Rubi Diaz actually does have a few of these 80 spikes, which is kind of interesting. Now he gets these 80 spikes because when he scores and assists, he takes a ton of shots to score generally. He takes a ton of shots on target. So when he scores 2 or 3 times, he normally gets like 10 extra, 9 extra points on top of what he should get. So that's one thing to keep in mind just with Rubi Diaz. He kind of has a little bit higher ceiling. But you can see a lot of times when he doesn't score, he's in that same 40 range, not generally getting up to like the 45 range. So Rubi Diaz is a little more of a wider spread for a forward. But typically you're not going to see that big of a spread. Most forwards are going to look like this. It really just depends on how many goals they actually score. So I'm going to throw one little piece of advice out here. If you are looking for an ETH team, an ETH grinding team, forward's a very expensive position. You can save yourself a lot of effort on forward and find someone who is not a forward, who is listed as a forward on Sorare. So I have one example here pulled up, is Russell Tybert. Now, he's a defensive midfielder for Vancouver. I don't know how he got classified as a forward, but on Sorare, he's classified as a forward. So you can see he very rarely scores or assists, right? All of his scores are kind of in this range. Now, because he does have a little more influence with building up possession, he's a little higher. Normally he's in like the 45-ish range. But realistically, he does not have he's only assisted one time. So he doesn't have a potential really to get 63. So when you see this number, like he's averaging 40 over the last 15 games, that's pretty much what you're going to get out of him. Now, if you're an ETH grinding team, that might be worth it. You know, he's consistently, outside of this, he's a starter. I don't know what happened here. I don't know if he was resting or what, but he's an every game starter for Vancouver. So if you're looking for an ETH grinding team, remember to hit the smaller ETH threshold, you only need to average 41 points per player in order to hit that. So you're breaking even with Russell Tybert. Now, you're not going to have that higher, you're never going to get a 60 out of him. So you're not going to be able to cover for somebody else. But he's so cheap relative to all the other forwards. I mean, another starting forward is going to cost you almost a tenth of an ETH right off the bat. So it might be worth it for an ETH grinding team to find one of these guys where he's not actually a forward, so he's not really going to gain the amount of points that he should gain. If he were a midfielder, he'd have much better scores because he'd be getting all those tackles and interceptions and build-up play and all that kind of stuff. But since he's a forward, people kind of overlook him. But you can actually use that to your advantage if you're going for an ETH grinding team and take advantage of his low price and the fact that he's consistently always he's always a starter. So he starts with 35 points right there, and you just need 5 more points to hit 40, and then you've hit your break even, for your forward position, and you've saved yourself a ton of money doing it. So that's one thing that I'll throw out there for the forwards. If you're strictly an ETH grinding team, I would not recommend doing this. If you're trying to get cards, a 40 is not good enough. You need a forward who is going to score or assist every other game roughly. So you need somebody who's going to put up that 70, put up that, if they score assist twice, an 80, right? So this is strictly for if you're trying to grind out ETH, you have a very small budget. Find one of these players that's misclassified as a forward that's actually a defensive midfielder or a midfielder, or I actually saw a right back in the Eredivisie that's classified as a forward, and I was using him as a forward on my ETH team. So definitely take a look at those because they're very consistent. They'll always put up these numbers. It's very difficult to go down as a forward, so you're always starting at 35 and you'll get a little bit, but you don't have that big potential. So that's gonna be it for the video here today. Like I said, forwards are pretty simple. It's really just how many goals, how many assists. That's really all you're looking for. If you have a tiebreaker, maybe look at shots on target. You want to find the guy that takes more shots on target, on frame, than the guy that shoots for the corners and misses wide half the time. But that's going to be it. As far as future content, it is a very busy time right now, so I will try to get something out when I can. My schedule at this point, I'm probably not going to get anything out before, I'd say, Monday. So definitely subscribe to the channel so when I do get back into it, my class is ending in about 2 weeks here, 3 weeks. So after that point, I should have a little bit more time to put out some more content. But let me know if you guys have any ideas, anything you want to see. The next thing I think I'm going to do is about Sorare data so that you guys can kind of figure out how to effectively use the website, because there are so many great tools that I don't see people use very often that really help when you're trying to find a player, when you're trying to evaluate your team. There's just so much to the website that I may do a multi-part series on the website itself. So I appreciate you guys listening. Again, feel free to reach out to me at MLS Card Guy on any of the socials. But until the next time, Vamos United.